Hello, everybody. I'm Myron Medcalf, founder of the Mary Ann Key Book Club, here with another exciting book that we're going to have a panel discussion on the Indigenous people's history of the United States for young people. It's the Young People edition. Roxanne Dunbar-Ortiz wrote the original, and Gene Mendoza and Debbie Reese adapted that version. I'm glad to be joined by our moderator of that panel for this book, Ramona Kitto Stately. Ramona, I know a lot about you, but if you wouldn't mind taking a moment to just tell us a little bit about who you are.
Hami Takayapi. My name is Ramona Kitto Stately, and I am Dakota. My people have lived here in the Minnesota River Valley for 14,000 years. Currently, we live in exile in Santee, Nebraska. So I'm excited to be here. I'm an educator. I am the project director of We Are Still Here, Minnesota. And our goal and our mission is to spotlight and amplify those places where we are invisible in our history and where our history is skewed. And so this is just an amazing book, and I'm excited we're all reading it. Thank you.
Well, I'm excited to have you leading this effort. This has been an incredible experience to read this book. I'm someone who kind of prides myself on knowing a lot about history, but reading it in detail like this, it just sort of makes you think about a number of things. Here's the thought I've had just reading in the first couple of chapters of this book. And I think about how I was taught, how so many kids are taught. We are taught that America was discovered. There was nothing really here. Europeans show up, and there you have a new country. And we pat those explorers on the back and say, look at what you did. And you read this history, and you realize, if you didn't realize before, that no, America was colonized, that there was an indigenous community here that had an established system, established communities, and then the Europeans showed up. How important is that, Ramona? Just that distinction, this idea of how, especially kids are taught, America was discovered versus the reality of what actually happened.
Yeah, I think that is such a great place and great question to start with. Sorry, my kitty's here. Is that it's so simple, Myron, really, to imagine that there were over 500 nations that have lived here for so many years, and for it to be described by the colonizers as a virgin continent, as if there were no roads, there were no ways of traveling and trades already happening across the country. There were so many people here, and so it was not discovered. I think that's a great distinction to make, is the difference between discovery and colonization. And then if we look at our history, and it is so well described in the book that there were so many people that really their focus was to remove the indigenous people. It wasn't virgin land, but that's the narrative that they're telling. But there were so many tactics used as well to remove the indigenous peoples. And I think the other part to that discovery is that some people think, well, the military came in and they removed the indigenous peoples, but really, reading this, you realize these are small militias of townspeople who took up arms to remove these indigenous peoples. It's quite surprising.
It's surprising, and I think it's also so important, right? The idea that our entire American education system is founded on this idea that was the starting place, and the reality is no. In fact, it wasn't. Real quickly before we go into our next subject, I think the image of the people who are here is important as well. Reading this book, there's this idea that, okay, yes, Native Americans were here, the indigenous population was here, but you think they were here without technology, without advanced tactics, and the reality was, to your point, they've been here for thousands and thousands of years, and had learned everything you could know about this land and taught it to these Europeans who came here. How important is that? The image of the indigenous population that was here and the communities that they had established.
Oh, it's very important. In fact, it's so important for us as adults and as parents to imagine what are the things that we're teaching the brilliant developing minds of our children, right? So we think about the visual image of manifest destiny, even the seal, the state seal for Minnesota. If we look at that, the native person is naked, and he's got, old tools and here this dressed up guy is plowing the land, right? So these are really strong visual images that are develop that tell children, okay, look, that they don't matter, and they're going this way, and what matters is white people.
It makes me think of my own community, Uncle Ben's rice and Aunt Jemima, and sort of these images that were carried, for centuries and centuries about, what Black people were at a particular time. And obviously you see this happening with the Indigenous community as well. And to your point, the goal is to say less than. I think Minnesotans like to believe that their history is pure. I think that's one of the challenges with this whole place, is they like to believe that this is everybody else's challenge. But what has happened here? You talk about some of the symbols and the things that still exist. What is happening in Minnesota to perpetuate some of these stereotypes even today?
Yeah, so there's a, K-12 education is really the main perpetrator of reinforcing a narrative, but also the historical society that hasn't really allowed a more balanced narrative about what happened on the Minnesota frontier in 1862. And one of the things, the major impacts of that, Myron, too, is that people who are grown, people who are so exceptional in their lives, making strong, smart leadership decisions, don't have this history. And so recently we see the University of Minnesota offers free tuition for all natives in the state. And for me, my people are exiled in Nebraska, so they're not part of that tuition waiver. So we have to all learn all of the history in order to make really good, solid decisions about our state.
Well, Ramona, I'm excited about going through this book with you. We'll be doing this every week until we get to the panel, which I'm also very excited about, and just looking forward to all of these great conversations. Ramona Kitto Stately, I'm Myron Medcalf. Thank you all for tuning in.